Welcome. We will get underway. So we've got, just for context, we're in the public included part of the meeting. We've got staff present. We've got Blair, Carmen, Deborah, Jamie, Lachlan, Paul and Chris Allen, and councillors Rob Pascoe, Deputy Mayor Jeff Taylor and myself. I believe others will be joining us for the workshop part. Welcome to those on Zoom. We'll get underway with apologies. Are there any apologies?
I'll be crossing to an iPhone, so I may be in and out a little bit, that's all.
Sure. Okay, I'll move that. We'll just note Martin's comment, and seconded by Councillor Angela. Thank you. Confirmation of agenda. I think everyone's got the run sheet, pretty straightforward. I'll move. Seconded, Councillor Angela. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? None. Public forum? None that I'm aware. We'll go into confirmation of the previous minutes, page 5 of the 3rd of August. Pretty straightforward. I'll move. Seconded. Councillor Sarah, thank you. Any against? None. Carried. Chair's report. Page 10. I will take as read. Just to point out that some of those things that I've identified, we're going to really dig into today in terms of trying to get an understanding of what the NPSUD actually means for us, and legally, infrastructure-wise, and area-wise, and really start to get a good, I guess, take some ownership in terms of what this means for us as a council, and have some confidence as elected members that we're shaping what this means, you know, in terms of our city. So happy to take any questions on that. Maxine's commented the sound is awful. Is that universal? Angela's
it's okay, my end. It's better now. It was pretty bad. It's just tinny now.
Tinny. I think I have to talk that way, but look at you that way. That's maybe the challenge. I won't look at you. Okay, I'll move that Chair's report be received. Seconded, Councillor Rob. Thank you. Those in favour? Any against? None. Carried. Blair, General Manager's report, page 7. Oh, sorry, item 7, page 11.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, this is a new approach to the reports that will come to the committee. So we're adopting the same format for some of the other standing committees, to have a General Manager's report to cover a range of program issues, and then followed by very specific reports as required. So this is the first of the GM report. What I would intend to do today, Chair, is just there's sort of 2 substantive topics here. One is communications, and one is obviously a comprehensive program update. So I wonder whether we just take those in parts. I might get Paul Bowman on behalf of the comms team just to introduce the communications component, and then Carmen Norris will obviously speak to the program update. So Paul, if I can just ask you to briefly talk about communications.
Yeah, thanks, Blair. Just really the update is for area plans and the intensification discussion. There was a webinar just over a couple of weeks ago now. It was pretty positive feedback. We had about 160 people on the call, and that's where we went through a very high-level PowerPoint which reflects what's currently on the council's website in terms of the NPSUD, and at a high level identifying our areas of interest that we're choosing to look at from a study perspective, and we'll get into those a bit later this morning, and also the general narrative around what we're actually required to do under the NPSUD on intensification. So feedback's come in. I haven't got the detail today because it's still being collated, and our comms lead, Craig McKibben, said we might extend it given circumstances over the last couple of weeks to allow various groups to feedback by email. We're getting drips and drabs come through from the likes of the Property Council and other groups just on general views and questions on intensification. we have an open email inbox as well, as we do for all these kind of standard programs. So the webinar effectively replaced our Waikato Stadium event. Given COVID times, we did something similar last year for the Central City Transformation Plan. They tend to be pretty successful, actually, my experience. So the upshot is that's coming in. We're still receiving feedback from the various groups, and that will be the final summary will be reported at the next meeting. The only other update is the next key piece of work is citizens panels, and our comms team and our communications lead are just deciding on the best approach right now for citizens panels. There's been some feedback, understandably so, that the public don't want to all meet strangers in a room, as citizens panels tend to be reflective of the community. So there's some struggles under sort of level 2, even level 2, sadly, to get a response for people to attend those panels. So that might be another online kind of survey response. We don't want to rule out citizens panels yet, so there's still time. But I think it's important to tell members this morning there will be a cut-off for citizens panels where their inputs are too late, because we want to carry on pushing on with our area plan analysis work. So we can't wait forever for citizens panels. So the next update we'll make a formal call on the timeframes for that. But that's it really for the general comms update. Still getting feedback in. We'll report that at the next meeting, because we're probably extending the deadline for feedback for another couple of weeks.
I wonder, Chair, would you want us to do the program update or just take questions on communications first?
Maybe just your questions then.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Paul through Blair on the comms piece? No, it's Craig's entering the, James, Craig's entering the waiting room. He might have something on comms. Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose, is the stakeholder and tangata whenua engagement encompassed within the comms conversation we're having right now? Because I guess my question is just around are EMs and Māngai Māori allowed to attend, and I'm thinking of attending the tangata whenua engagement at Hokinui Marae. So is that allowed? I guess is the question, to be sort of an observer in the room, not an active participant.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid. I mean, we do have our Mana Whenua engagement lead, that's Julian Williams. So currently, I think he's sort of formulating that along with Craig McKibben, our comms lead, in terms of all our iwi engagement for the programme. But given the recent events, I'm not sure that's currently going ahead, is my understanding.
So the engagement session at Hokinui Marae won't go ahead now, and Julian's looking at running a couple of webinars in its place. He's just getting some things together, James, and I'll give you an update when we just decided that yesterday. It's very unlikely, given what's happening, that we can make that work in the timeframes that we need it to.
James, I would certainly welcome if you wanted to be part of any of those sessions. I think we'd certainly welcome, your attendance or support. So I think, again, we'll just take that note. And I think COVID is obviously just providing some challenges in terms of those engagement processes, but we will find other ways to effectively engage through tangata whenua. So absolutely welcome your interest.
No, thank you very much.
Cool. Maxine, you had a question. Is it gone? Mayor Paula.
Good morning, everyone. Just on that, I guess there'll be times, my diligence slow coming up at the moment, I guess there'll be times when all elected members will, at certain points in the process, come together, and of course Māngai would be included in that portion as well. And in terms of the citizen panels, who I've lost the detail here, but who is, so they represent the wider portion of community. Does that include the non-development community who are affected by development, or is it just a broad section of the community who are the movers and shakers? So I just don't have, I'm just trying to get my computer to reboot right now, so just in terms of how the citizen engagement works.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Paul. Look, I'm not the comms lead, so I'm just doing my best this morning, but my understanding of citizens panels, there's a number of ways you can do it, is the answer. We use citizens panels for the Peacock Plan Change Programme. They used a firm called, I think it was Nielsen IQ, along with our strategy team, to look at the broad cross-section of the community. So it's not just developers, it's the people who are going to live there, the people who experience those places, community groups, representatives of those localities. So that would be the same for the NPSUD work. Should we go ahead with the face-to-face meetings? Obviously, the same people our comms team are looking to identify will be, if we do an online survey, they'll still be involved. But at this time, I think the messaging was we haven't got enough people for those citizens panels right now to have a broad cross-section, a credible cross-section of those communities. There's not enough people showing interest. So I think that's something that's with our comms team, just to ponder, take stock and think about the best approach to do it, because we want it to be a balanced section of the community for those area plans we're looking at.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I'm just going to see if Craig's on the Zoom call. He might be able to give you a response. Certainly my interest in the citizens panels, Paula, has been to be the lay people in the community. We have separate stakeholder development forums, and we've had a webinar recently that will be for a slightly different purpose. But this is the lay people in the communities are very clear about the potential impacts and having input to that. Craig, are you on Zoom? I think I saw you enter, if you've got a quick comment on that.
Morena, everybody. I trust you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
I just had a few technical issues getting set up this morning, so apologies for my lateness. I didn't hear the initial question, but I'm assuming this is just seeking a bit of an update in terms of the use of citizen panels. What I can say is that we've struggled to recruit people at this time, and one of the key reasons for that is I guess a lack of desire to be meeting with people under the current alert levels. And from a public perspective, I can certainly appreciate those concerns. So what we're doing at the moment is looking at other alternatives for how we might be able to do this, and we are still very much committed to undertaking citizen panels. But it might be a case of the actual panels taking place at a later stage when alert levels are, I guess, more favourable for having such discussions. Technically speaking, you could do them under the current alert levels, but as I said, the actual uptake in terms of recruitment has been not great, and one of the key reasons is a reluctance to be meeting. So what we're
Follow-on question. Sorry to jump in. Didn't mean to. Just in terms of the ability to engage the wider public digitally through, Facebook Live, through citizens panels. I've been on both Zoom and Teams who have dropout group sessions that you can do and things.
So I've had a good talk with Helen Ritchie, who's going to be our facilitator for the citizens panels. Just spoke to her this morning because I did want to look at the option of taking those citizen panel workshops online. She shared the same concerns that I had, largely around the fact that for a lot of people, being in that online environment, it's quite easy for them not to raise their voice, and you might have a situation where all you're really hearing is the squeaky wheels. So what we thought was that it'd be better not to take that approach at this stage, but we can certainly investigate that further if you wish for us to do so. But we didn't think we'd get a very good result out of taking the citizen panels online.
Oh, well, I'm thinking of a blend of tools, which is exactly what's happening in the three water space across the country, because of course we can't get together with other mayors. But I've been in a number of things where we've had amazing facilitated dropout sessions on a platform where you go into small rooms independently and then you come back to the large and things like that. So there are ways that we may need to just be agile there, I feel. Sorry, that's vague, Brian.
No, look, I think it's a fair point, Mia. My question would be, have those options been used with general members of the community, or they've been more at a stakeholder level where I guess you'd anticipate a great level of participation in that environment?
A bit of both, but I'm just saying that, look, I think the detail of COVID long, so I just want us to, can we, through you, Mr Chair, explore some further ways of reaching out, given that, you know, the ideal is to get together, but we may not be able to get to.
Mayor Paulus, it's
You can use your neighbourhood events too, because those would be good, because we could potentially monitor the number of people through and around the
Yep.
neighbourhood events.
Mayor Paula, can we take that as an action and we'll come back to you with that? Because we're also going to be discussing area plans a little bit later today, so there'll be further opportunity to see how we might better engage.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just on that note, Councillor, the purpose of the citizen panels is to focus on those area plan locations, and so we do have an option of taking an online survey at the moment and using that to inform those area plans, and then, like, as I said, using the citizen panels at a later date.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron.
Councillor Angela.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If you'll just indulge me on a comment. I raised this right at the beginning, my concerns with getting Joe public, and I think what was just said now, we won't get that engagement until the area plans go out, and, you know, Joe public understands exactly the consequences of their of these changes. So I'm not surprised we're finding it hard to get people at the moment. But it's good we've got a plan going forward.
Yep, noted.
As a general comment to the elected members, the reason why communications is the very first item on our agenda is because we recognise how important it is. It is obviously a core focus of this project, and so we brought it to your attention because I think, Councillor Angela, for the reasons that you've outlined, we want to make sure that the average person is engaged in this project early and understands it. And equally, that's the purpose of our workshop to follow today, because I think there's some pretty big concepts here that we're grappling with. So our communications will need to be agile. Mayor Paula, take on board your comments and we'll reflect that as a team. Equally, we need to make sure that the communications is appropriate for the time, and clearly at the moment with COVID we have to think about different ways of working. So Craig and the team are looking at that, and we'll obviously take this feedback today and go back and just reconsider the things that we're doing. But certainly this is the most important aspect of the project, hence the reason it's first item on the agenda within the General Manager's report. I didn't want communications to be last item. It's the most important part of this process.
Thanks, Angela. Current hand, old hand. Back to you.
Okay, so the second part of the General Manager's report is just focusing on the actual program of the district plan review, and I'll just get Carmen, who's our program manager, to just speak to that part of the report. Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you. I'm just hoping to keep this pretty brief. Overall, things are tracking really well with the program. The team are managing really well with the lockdown, the ongoing lockdown that we've been having. Some of our contractors are based in Auckland, so it's been pretty hard for trees and houses to be looked at during this time, but they've adjusted their project timeframes, and we're still looking pretty like we're tracking okay. We've got some emerging issues we've identified largely around infrastructure that may impact the scope of the program. We're working through those at the moment, and we'll be talking to those in the second half of our meeting today, so I won't dwell on those. In terms of risks, we're still largely managing our risks pretty well, so communications and engagement with key stakeholders, general public. We're working with Craig to make sure that they're managed well. The schedule, as I said, is going okay. Any further delays in terms of lockdown in Auckland is going to affect what we can do moving forward. We're just looking to manage that okay at the moment, but it's going okay. We'll be presenting a budget at the next meeting. We'll give you an update on where things are sitting, but again, budget's tracking well. And that's it from me.
I think just one other comment through the chair, just in paragraph 31, it was important to actually summarise, when we talk about the district plan review project, there's actually 9 parts to it. And so the table there actually importantly summarises the projects within the program, and they are each individually substantial. We often get focused on the NPS elements, but they are just obviously a very significant part, but one part of a range of things. And obviously scope management's important for us, and we'll talk a bit about that in the briefing later today. You know, something such as this, it's moving and flexing with what's happening in the market, what feedback we're getting, and as elected members, what information you're bringing to our attention. But at the present time, the project scope is based on those 9 elements described in paragraph 31, and so that's occupying the team's focus at the present time. But Chair Ryan, happy to take any questions on the programme report, and equally just any feedback on the General Manager report and in general, if it's providing a good overall sort of programme update for you. So thank you.
Thanks. I've got a question from Mayor Paula.
Oh, yes, actually, I was just about to put my hand up, but it's already up, sorry. Just in terms of the Fairfield-Enderley Urban Development Partnership, how's that progressing, or when will we next see some sort of greater detail on that? Because that's a project pretty dear to my heart that I've hoped where we can join up growth and community outcomes.
So I might just get Carmen to give an update, Mayor Paula.
Thank you.
So just want to make it clear that the Fairfield-Enderley project is related to this program, but it's outside the scope of this current program, and Ben Scott will be giving an update on that
To this next meeting.
to this next meeting.
So Mayor Paula, there has been some conversations with the relevant parties, with Kāinga Ora, so things are progressing there, and obviously it will become a standing item reported through to this committee. That's as per the council decision.
No, I was a bit confused about that comment about it being outside the work program. Can you just, because I think it is a project that sits within the bigger program, but I'm just not sure what was meant by that. Could you clarify that, please?
So the Fairfield-Enderley partnership is in relation to Kāinga Ora preparing a area plan in relation to that geographical area, which sits in as a complementary area plan to the 4 that our team are progressing. We're going to be working in partnership with them, so it's an aligned project that forms part of a suite of initiatives. But ultimately, we're working with Kāinga Ora.
So that wasn't my intent when I set out to invigorate a Fairfield-Enderley. It was supposed to be a multi-agency approach. I know Kāinga Ora are taking the lead, but it was to be, you know, given that we do growth planning for greenfield subdivisions, Peacock, Rotu, Cody, whatever, and we do that. I want an approach for existing areas that need revitalisation that looks like that we know where all the pieces fit. So can someone please tell me how then we lift this up from being what it wasn't never supposed to be, just a Kāinga Ora program, into a multi-agency approach of revitalising Enderley, Fairfield?
Paul, I might have misconstrued it. The scope was as signed off in terms of the Strategic Growth Committee, which is exactly as you describe it. Obviously, Kāinga Ora are the lead agency, but it is a multi-party approach. So as reported to the last Strategic Growth Committee, that scope holds and stands. It's going to be reported through this committee as the program develops, and we'll have a more comprehensive update to the next meeting.
Okay, so just through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask that we do have that, and that we are very clear about what our actions are. If it's a multi-agency approach, then we have actions. We have actions across this committee and other committees as well, and I need to understand that more clearly, if I may, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. Are there any other questions for Blair on his GM's report? Noting that we'll get into the details shortly. Fantastic. Okay. Thanks, Blair. I'll move that we receive the report. Sarah, you've got a quick question. I'll just get it seconded by Deputy Mayor Jeff. Where you go.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, it takes like a few moments to raise your hand. My question was just around us running behind schedule and the risk around that. Blair, do you see that there's opportunity to kind of make up time, or is it looking like, in order to kind of maintain the scope of work we've planned it, we may have to push pans out? Where do you see things sitting at the moment?
So, Councillor Angela, I'm assuming you're referring to the overall comment around risk around just program schedule and timeframe. I'm assuming that's what you're asking about. So if that is the intent of your question, we are very focused on our September 2022 date. One of the things that we're constantly monitoring is, and we will constantly talk with you, including this including the session and the workshop, will be if there are elements which are placing the overall program at risk, which of those parts are most important that we focus on to ensure that we deliver the September 2022 date. Bearing in mind, National Policy Statement on Urban Development requires that we make plan notification changes by September 2022. So there are, I guess if you come back to that list on paragraph 31, if push came to shove, we may have to say some parts slow down or disappear. We're not suggesting that at the moment, but we constantly as a program will be monitoring those and I guess looking at those to ensure that we deliver the minimum requirement under the legislation on the NPS, but ideally we deliver all 9 elements. So
And that could mean possibly then a separate plan change if part of that was slowed down.
that's correct. That's exactly right. So it doesn't mean that work won't be done. It just means that those elements would be a separate plan change to travel at a slightly separate date, which is entirely fine and appropriate. But ideally we'd like to package as much up as we can. But I think we need to be cognisant of COVID, work pressures, work demands, the complications that we find as we dive into some of these topics more deeply, and just the general tracking to timeframes. So just trying to be really transparent and equally ensure that we take you collectively and the public on the journey, and we come back to what is the minimum we must deliver by September 2022, which is the NPSUD.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So we'll go to debate. Those in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. I'll move that we go into publicly excluded now, seconded by Sarah. We'll just give team a minute to switch off and then we'll go into our PX workshop.